Hey, yo, what up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Rob Markman. This is Markman Comics. Shout out to everybody who's been supporting so early, liking, subscribing, commenting. I know I like to have the good conversation, the good comic book conversation with y'all. Today I want to talk about Venom: The Last Dance. All right, I want to go see it this weekend. I'm gonna try to avoid really big spoilers, but if you haven't seen the movie and you're afraid of spoilers, you should probably skip this video, come back after you've seen it. I definitely don't want to be the one to ruin it for you. You know what I mean? Now, if you're staying, that means you either saw it or you don't really care. So, let's go, man. If you're a fan of the original Venom movie and Let There Be Carnage, you'll probably like this movie. I thought the original Venom movie was alright. Like, it was like a 5 out of 10 to me. My favorite part of the original movie was the Cletus Cassidy tease. With Carnage. They were teasing Carnage, and then in part two, they ruined Carnage to me. Like the best part of part one, and they ruined it in part two. But my biggest problem with the Venom franchise is really my problem with all of the Sony Spider-Man movies that don't have Spider-Man. Right? It's like boneless chicken wings, man. It's just like you telling us it's boneless chicken wings and you selling us nuggets, man. It just feels like a cash grab, and that there isn't a ton of investment to actually make good movies. Like Madam Web wasn't good. I actually felt Morbius was okay. I wasn't mad at Morbius like everyone else was. I'd say Morbius was about a 6 out of 10. But Sony to me is just content with making subpar movies just to have a superhero movie in the Spider-Man universe. Outside of the Spider-Verse, the animated Spider-Verse movies, which are amazing, they really bring the superhero genre down, right? And Marvel has some work to do too in terms of bringing things back to the glory that they once had. James Gunn has his work cut out for him with the DC cinematic universe. And Marvel, let's just say, are like absolutely making business decisions, right? Like all of these studios are. They're putting the business before the actual art of making a good movie. But you can see Marvel continually trying to make good movies, though it feels like the machine got really big and hard to rein in. But Sony is just putting out bad superhero movies with like doesn't even feel like they're trying. Um right now the movie is on pace to fall below. They were projecting 65 million for the box office for the opening weekend box office numbers. That was being forecasted. They're looking to fall, it looks like they're gonna fall way below that. Now, you know, if you remember Spider-Man No Way Home and the post-credit scenes, of course you do. They teased that Venom will eventually, or hinted at that Venom will eventually somehow, some way exist in the MCU. He did, the incursion, the Doctor Strange spell, the thing that brought Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield into the MCU. So Eddie Brock and Venom ended up like in the MCU in that hotel room for a second, and so it teased that there was gonna perhaps be some type of crossover. Venom sees Spider-Man on the screen, he licks the screen, and so there was gonna be some crossover, which all the fans want to see in the MCU, right? We want to see the black symbiote suit on Tom Holland. And then with Secret Wars coming, it's like, oh, maybe that's a possibility. So we want to see the black symbiote suit, and you want to see Spider-Man and Venom. Venom is one of Spider-Man's greatest villains. So they're teasing that Venom is going to exist in the MCU, or could exist in the MCU, and not just the Sony Cinematic Universe, and tease a potential crossover. Except in this movie, it just never pays off. There's no mention of Spider-Man. We don't get there. It's not even a hint of it. It seems like maybe they abandoned that, or they just use that to hype people up. But I don't really see how that's gonna happen. There's a Thanos reference in this new Venom movie, except they never say his name. They reference him as the purple alien and some stones, and that's it. So I wasn't really interested in this new Venom movie until they put Knull in the trailer, because by the time you get to Knull, look, by the time you get to Knull in the Venom lore, right? You don't really need Spider-Man as much. Venom's origin is rooted as the opposite of Spider-Man. That's his whole reason for being, is to destroy Spider-Man. So he starts off as just this really menacing villain, like one of Spider-Man's greatest foes, and then he becomes this anti-hero, this lethal protector, willing to do the things that Spider-Man wouldn't, but ultimately he's a good guy. His methods are just way nastier than Spider-Man. And But he grows, right? Boom, he grows into his own character. Venom eventually becomes his own character. So when they tease Knull in the trailer, I'm like, okay, I'm still super skeptical because the movies just haven't been good. But I'm like, okay, maybe they can really do something worthy of the character of Venom here. Like maybe you could really start to now root him in his own purpose outside of Spider-Man, which is hard to do in the origin story for me. If you don't know, Knull existed in a dark universe. First appeared, actually have the book Venom #3 right here, right? So Knull existed in this dark universe until the Celestials, who created life, the stars, the sun, all of that, they created all of that, and then upset Knull because that disrupted the blackness which he ruled, which he existed in, the nothingness. So Knull creates the all black, the Necro Sword. This is the same weapon that Gore the God Butcher used in Thor: Love and Thunder. So we've seen that in the MCU. Knull used the sword and decapitated one of the Celestials. The Celestial head floating in space became the planet Nowhere that we see in Avengers Infinity War. So, already just the introduction of Knull or the mention of Knull in the Venom movie does give some nods to the things that we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe already, right? Knull also created the symbiotes, right? The black goo, what becomes Venom, the beings, the alien beings, which eventually become Venom, Carnage, Scream, all the other symbiotes, right? So the symbiotes revolt against him, and this is all in the comic book. They didn't really touch this in the movie, but the symbiotes revolted against him, trapped him in a prison called Clintar, and in the last dance opens. The first scene is Knull in the prison in Clintar, and they show him in the first scene and the last scene. Maybe he's in it for 5 minutes, but he's in that prison and he's trying to escape. The movie teases that there's some great danger coming, but I just can't figure out how, right? Will Knull eventually cross over into the MCU? Again, we saw the Necro Sword in Thor: Love and Thunder, which they butchered Gore, like, straight up. Like, they could have done, that character deserves so much better. But, we've seen Nowhere, the planet in the MCU, so will Knull eventually cross over into the MCU? I doubt it. I don't know that Sony and Marvel, outside of Spider-Man, will be able to make that licensing agreement that they have work, unless Sony says, okay, we're just going to give you all the characters. We're going to license all the characters to Marvel and let Marvel just do what they want with the characters. Sony seems content with holding on to some of these Spider-Man properties for themselves to make them money. But if these movies continue to bomb, they start losing their value eventually, could not become worth as much. You know what I'm saying? For those who don't know, right? Like, Sony still owns the movie rights to Spider-Man, but they allow Marvel to produce the Spider-Man movies and allow Spider-Man to appear in other MCU movies, and Sony gets a cut of that profit. I'm not exactly sure how the business works out. And then all the other characters that exist in the Spider-Man universe, Sony gets to make their own movies about these characters. So that's kind of the business dealing. So unless Sony totally gives that up, I don't see Knull crossing over into the MCU. They'll have to restructure how they do the business. So, I doubt it. And then without Tom Hardy as Venom, he said this is the last one. Who's the hero that matches up and goes up against Knull? And even more frankly, like, why should we care? Like, is there going to be a hero that, for every great villain, you need a great hero to match up against him? And, in the comics, Knull fought Thor, he fought Silver Surfer, he fought the Avengers, he fought the X-Men, he beat them all. So seeing him, if he purely exists in the Sony universe, like, who's going to be the main hero? Is it going to be Kraven? Is it going to be Morbius? Is it going to be Madam Web? Like, that's just underwhelming. They do tease some new symbiotes like Agony in this one, the purple symbiote, and they tease that Venom could possibly take on a new host. But the audience, and these movies have been bad, but the audience doesn't have the same emotional connection to these heroes like they did to Eddie Brock, who we've been following for 3 movies. Again, you need that hero, right? Like Thanos, like you needed Iron Man, you needed Tony Stark versus Thanos. Like, there was an emotional connection there. So outside of Knull, the movie played upon like the push and pull between Eddie Brock and Venom and the symbiote. And a lot of the same jokes in the first 2 movies were used here. So it's kind of that buddy movie that they hate each other, but they really have this fond, bond with each other. So the same jokes, the same relationship between Eddie and the symbiote, you see that in this one. It wasn't anything here, but ultimately there just wasn't a ton in this movie, at least not for me. Uh, like I don't recommend it for anybody to go see it. Wait till it comes on streaming. And actually, if we don't see it and if we don't support it in the box office, I already spent my money. But it may inspire Sony to just let it go. Like I've actively made the decision after watching Venom. I said, "Yo, I'm not gonna go see Craven. Craven comes out in December, I think, November or December. I'm gonna stay home for Craven. I didn't go out for Madam Web. I saw that on streaming, but I was on the fence with Venom. Like I said, when they showed Knull in the trailer, I'm like, all right, let me go check this out. And then that was underwhelming. So it'd be interesting to see those of y'all who saw it, what y'all thought, man. Leave comments, man. Let me know what y'all thought. And then really let me know if you think Knull will cross over into something bigger. Will there be this big threat in the Sony universe? Will he go to the MCU? What do you think the future is of the symbiote and Knull and all that good stuff? And I'll talk right back. All right. So the next video, y'all. Peace.